Okay, these are the parts we need to use to build the ball collector. We're just going to put some of these parts to one side for a minute whilst we assemble the initial components. We will get back to these parts in a short while. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to assemble the bearing. We're going to pop that on here, the bearing block, and to do that we're going to use rivets, and the rivets come apart into two pieces. You want to push them together, but not all the way. You'll note that when you push it all the way, the end part sticks out slightly to lock it in place. So we're going to use our bearings, our rivets, and we're going to place them through the back two points here and here. We're then going to attach our motor, and we need to take care to make sure that we use the correct screws for the motor. These are slightly smaller than normal screws. You should have 2 long and 2 short motor screws. In this case we're just using the short screws. Before I tighten that on fully, I'm going to assemble our clutch, which is very simple to use. The clutch is there so that if our motor is in any way strained, the clutch will pop instead of the internal components inside the motor. We just need to pop that in before we tighten this up. The motor screws also have a smaller hex head, so that's why you have 2 hex keys of different sizes. Be sure to use the correct hex key at the correct time. Okay. We're just now going to put the main axle in. It may require turning slightly to make sure it's in place. I think that's in place. We're going to put a locking collar on, followed by the small plastic spacer. And now we can put this section on, which is just going to give a little bit more security to our motor axle. You can see that the small parts can get slightly fiddly, so just take your time and make sure you get these parts. These Keps nuts should be put on so that the spiky bits are pointing towards the metalwork. This means that they will be held nice and securely, and we can tighten that up with our hex key here. Don't over tighten the bolts because you'll have to release them at a later stage. We can now place the large gear on and think about assembling the collector part. This goes together very simply. We're going to put one wheel on the axle and lock it off with the small hex key. This part goes through here. We will then pop on a large spacer, the 36 tooth gear and the small wheel before joining those together with another collar on there, and just making sure that it's fairly reasonably well joined together. Okay. Now we want to do the lower part of this. And so we will put 2 screws in and use our 75mm standoffs. This is another fiddly part to get into. And we're going to place the small aluminium part on here. Before we do that, we're going to fold it slightly in, 2 in, and then 3 more spaces. We're going to fold it slightly out, and that's just going to help our ball collector work. We're then going to line that up. Again, I'll probably do this slightly fiddly, but you'll get used to using the screws. Not overly tight. And this part here. The final part of assembly will be attaching the motor controller. The motor controller will enable us to control it using the Cortex unit. We just attach the 2 blue parts together so that black crosses over to red and red crosses over to black. And we can now attach this to our base bolt. The best way I found of attaching this is really simply to one of these outside parts. We're going to use an additional short hex bolt and a cap screw on the back. We'll tighten that up. And then I'm going to plug this into motor controller 6. So pull back the secure key, plug that in, and there we have it. Our fully finished ball collector. And if we switch it on, we should be able to control it to collect our ball. He's a bit high up at the moment, but if I push him down, he can then collect our ball and move around with him. That's it.